Positive tests popping up left and right across the NFL. I'm Mariah Janos, joined by Evan Lazar. Evan, we just talked about this on Monday, the snowball effect of COVID. Two more Titans have tested positive. A member of the Raiders has tested positive. Patriots numbers are going up in positivity. At what point does the league press the pause button?
The league is not going to press the pause button, Mariah. I can guarantee you that. The only way that they're going to press the pause button is if we have a true outbreak in the league where there is multiple positive tests across multiple teams, not just a couple of teams. I think what you're seeing from the league right now, though, and where my anger with the league stems from, is just know your risks, right? Know your calculated risks. They knew the incubation period. They're not dumb. They have some of the best doctors in the world advising them on these issues. They understood that playing that game on Monday night was a risk, but they didn't want to skip the game because there was really no great way to reschedule. On top of that, they also were able to then move a Chiefs-Patriots game into prime time, which is, of course, what the league wanted to do, and the game did great ratings as a result. So let me be clear. The league is not going to pause the season unless there is a bigger outbreak across the league in terms of numbers of players and teams that have tested positive for the coronavirus. On top of that, you need to realize, if you're the NFL and Commissioner Roger Goodell, that there are necessary risks in terms of continuing playing certain games where teams don't have positive tests, and then there's unnecessary risks like playing that game in Kansas City on Monday night. And I hope moving forward they start to learn from their mistakes and don't play those games like the one on Sunday against the Broncos for the Patriots, and the Titans sit a couple of more weeks out and they avoid those unnecessary risks. Other than that, we all are going out there. We're all going to work. We're all going out, and doing what we need to do to live our lives. So there is always going to be some element of risk involved with this virus as we continue forward. But again, it's those unnecessary risks that the league is taking that really was an oversight by the commissioner.
Today's segment is powered by CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company. Call 800-CAR-6000 and mention the code BEAT, or go to carshield.com and enter the promo code BEAT for 10% off. That's carshield.com, promo code BEAT. Now, it's safe to say, as we've discussed, the league does not have the players' best interest in mind here. Am I correct?
Right. It's a hypocrisy. It's truly is. And this is no different in a lot of ways in how the league has approached, let's say, concussions in the past, right? They sit there and they say on the surface that they are completely for player safety, that they'll do anything it takes to make the players safe and make sure everybody is safe. But ultimately what the league is always going to fall back on is you had the choice to opt out. A lot of Patriots players took that choice, and you can see now why. And you decided to, basically sign on the dotted line and say that you were going to play the season knowing the risks, and the league is going to lean back on that. They're going to put the onus on the clubs, on the teams, to follow the protocols and avoid outbreaks on a state level instead of on a federal level, and that's exactly what they're going to continue to say. So they are a hypocritical bunch. We've known that all along, right? They speak out of one side of their mouth publicly, and privately do they actually really care about the spread of coronavirus in their league, or are they more worried about the money? I think that we have seen time and time again, their decision-making has shown us that they are more concerned about how much money they're going to make, how many games they can fit in before they truly need to put the season on pause, I think is another thing as well. And they're going to keep pushing through until the absolute last possible second. And that is so just in line with everything the league has always been about. Like I just said, concussions is a great example. There's a million other examples that go over the course of the NFL history. They only care about the money, and they don't really care about player safety, but they like to make us think that they care about player safety.
Now, what I'm starting to think about too, and maybe it's just way too far out and tell me to stop, but you've got like the Titans-Steelers game being canceled or postponed. Say random games are getting canceled or postponed left and right. Further down the road, the playoff picture, how do you determine who is in contention for the playoffs and who isn't if teams aren't playing the same amount of games?
Well, there's a couple of different ways that they could go about this. The easiest way, and we've talked about this, is making a week 18, right? A de facto week 18, where there's just a bonus week in the regular season for games like Titans Steelers and games like potentially Broncos Patriots to get flexed into that week later on in the season, where hopefully we have a little bit of a better grasp of the virus. But I think the risk that you end up running if you keep on pushing things down the road is that you might run into a situation where we're playing till March because they have to keep on tacking on extra weeks to fill more and more games as more and more teams start to struggle with the pandemic. So I think that's what the league is trying to avoid. That's why they're playing these games as scheduled or just postponing them a couple of days or even just one day. In the case of Patriots Chiefs, is to avoid a situation where they have to tack weeks on at the end of the season and keep pushing the season back. The other way that you can do it, you go by win percentage, right? Just overall win percentage and just kind of stack up the standings from there. And some teams might only play 15, some teams might only play 14 games. But at the end of the day, everybody's going to be, one wins versus losses. You can sort of do the math there and pick the seeding that way. But it's obviously a disaster. This is the worst case scenario for the league at this point. And all of us saw it coming. That's I think the most frustrating part as a fan, as in the media. We all saw this coming, and the league themselves just took such a negligent approach to this entire thing, dating all the way back to the summer when they had all this time to prepare, to get ready, maybe to put teams in a bubble, maybe to alter the schedule so that the travel was more regional instead of the Patriots going all the way to Seattle for a game a few weeks ago or going to Kansas City. Maybe you kept it for the AFC East and the NFC East only or something like that, where they're only traveling within the Northeast or this region of the country. Now, all of a sudden, the Patriots still have 2 more trips out west. They got to go to LA twice, right? Later on in the year. It's just, there's so many reasons why this season was not planned accordingly, and so many ways that they could have gone about it to make it safer for the players. And they just kind of decided to say, well, teams, make sure you guys all wear masks and make sure you're not going to bars and clubs and restaurants and stuff like that. And let's just pray that this works.
Yeah, I mean, we saw with the NHL and the NBA, bubbles work. Cannot stress that enough. So
we threw out all these bubble scenarios, put 4 bubbles, right? 8 teams per bubble, NFC East and the AFC East go into a bubble together. The AFC North and the NFC North go into a bubble together. You play 8 games, that's 14 games per team, 7, opponents within the bubble. You play 2 games each against everybody, and the winners of each bubble play in a conference championship, and then you get a Super Bowl. Boom. Problem solved. And the league just didn't have the foresight for it. They didn't want to pay for it. I think that was the biggest thing, is bubbles are expensive, right? You can go ask the NBA. Getting Disney World and all that hooked up in Orlando was not easy and was not cheap. So that was, I think, the biggest thing, was that logistically they didn't want to go about it. They didn't want to go through that process to get that type of bubble situation. And they also didn't want to spend the money to find the facilities to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is, if the NHL has money for a bubble to put together something, the NFL definitely does. So that's so frustrating. But we're just going to stop there because we could talk about this all day. For all of our Patriots coverage, head over to clnsmedia.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Patriots Press Pass.